Travel with us through beautiful Southern Oregon as we visit the gems of the Rogue Valley. These are some of the most popular and hidden gems in the region. We'll take you and explore incredible venues, amazing hotspots, unique museums, and places you can bring the whole family. So get ready for your hosts, Cassandra Wass and David Nienow.
Hello and welcome to Gems of the Rogue Valley. I'm your host, David Nienow.
And I'm your host, Cassandra Wass.
And today we're talking about history, the long range of history in the Rogue Valley, which spans thousands of years, actually.
Absolutely. It starts with the American Indians and goes to the pioneers and then all the way to the gold rush days to present day. And we have with us a very special gem that really takes pride in our history. So we want to welcome the Southern Oregon Historical Society.
And our guest from the Southern Oregon Historical Society today is Ben Truwe. Welcome, Ben.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So excited to have you here with us today. Thanks for being here.
Your
question.
Yeah. So let's start off with the fact that the Historical Society has a library and information center downtown Medford.
It's true.
And so what all is available through the library downtown in terms of information available for people?
What isn't available? Well, first off, it isn't a lending library. It's a research library.
Okay.
But no one's counted the number of items there, but it's got to be pushing 1 million. There's nearly a mile worth of shelving. It's not your typical historical society. Most county historical societies, you go in and there might be a couple file cabinets, a few shelves of books. As I said, there's a mile of shelving. And I've tried to go through them all, and I haven't been able to. It's an enormous enormous resource. This is a place where someone can do serious research. And coupled with the Genealogical Society, this really makes this valley an extraordinary place for someone who wants to do historical research.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That's one of the reasons why, knowing the interconnectedness between the two societies, that we wanted to really bring exposure to both, because they really do complement each other really well.
And we appreciate it.
So I believe right now we have a short clip to run on the Historical Society.
Oh yeah, and it shows those long hauls. Can we pull that up?
All right.
There are like miles looking of records there for sure.
Oh yeah, that doesn't begin to show how great the volume is. You know, any not only printed documents but manuscripts, manuscript correspondence, ledgers, diaries, bills of lading, invoices. That's just
incredible.
Anything that found its way onto paper, you'll find at the Historical Society represented in one form or another. And of course, thousands of photographs all taken in the Rogue Valley.
That's terrific. Well, let's talk about the society. So the society puts on a lot of different things. They do this thing called Windows in Time.
They do.
So tell us about Windows in Time.
Well, that's just one of the many programs that's done. It's a program. It's a 1-hour history talk that's given 24 times a year. The same talk is given twice every month on the first and second Wednesdays.
Okay.
The first Wednesday at noon is done at the Public Library in Medford. The second Wednesday at noon is done at the Public Library in Ashland.
Okay. Okay. And can anyone like just let you know and they could do a historical talk? Is that a possibility?
Well, theoretically, you'd have to have something to say and convince the people who manage this exercise that you're a serious historian. But
Very
you know,
nice.
there are only 12 slots in a year, only 12
Oh,
speakers in
only
this
12.
program a year.
Okay.
We would always love to have more speakers. If we had a vast array of speakers, we'd have to start another program, wouldn't we? And
Well, and
I'd like to see that happen.
And there's something else you're working on. You've got this fire engine.
That's new. That's new.
So what's happening with the fire engine?
In April, the society was given a 1946 Ford fire engine, and it's no ordinary fire engine.
Wow.
This is Ashland's amphibious fire engine.
Okay. So was it in a pond somewhere?
Yes, paddling about. No, it was. Well, first of all, it was ordered by Ashland, the city of Ashland, in 1946. It was built at the Howard Cooper Company in Portland. So
Okay.
it's an Oregon fire engine.
Okay.
It's never left the state since 1946. Served Ashland for 30 years. But in its second year of service, it was pumping out a basement on the plaza during a flood in 1948. And the bridge gave way and it spent the day in the creek.
Jeez.
So they had to pull it out of the creek and completely disassemble it, put it back together again, repaint it, and then it served for Ashland for 30 years. And we're going through it now, again, putting it back on the road, and we will still pull off parts and a cascade of Ashland Creek sand will fall out.
That's a piece of history.
We've saved the sand. It's now a museum piece.
Oh, that is so terrific. Well, I put together a mini clip to show you some pictures of the fire engine. So can we take a look? Wow.
You know, those pictures showed before and after and showed us working on it.
Was that you working on it?
I was one of those guys. yeah.
Okay. Head in there.
Oh, yeah.
Can you use more volunteers right now on that project?
Oh, we can use more volunteers on every one of our
Everything.
projects. You know, history is such a broad topic that you know, whatever anyone's skills or interests or inclinations are, a use can be found for them. And I always tell new volunteers, you know, if we put you on something and you find out you don't like it, tell somebody. We don't want to drive you away. There's always something
There's something else we can
that
put
you
you
will
on.
like that you can do.
Right, right. And-
Especially with Hanley Farm and the library and the fire engine and our speaking projects, and you know, there's something for everybody.
Yeah, volunteers.
Absolutely.
Definitely volunteers, which we'll get to. But also you have another project that you've been working on. It's this footage. You sent me a bunch of footage from the 60s to the 80s that you're transferring this film. And where did it come from? The stations? Or?
Well, the TV station, the two TV stations that were operational saved all their 16 millimeter news clips that they showed on TV from
Wow.
1964 into the early 80s and gave them all to the Historical Society, where they languished for about 20 years. But
Right.
2 years ago, I started transferring them to video, and so far I've done 975 clips. And boy, I could use help on that.
Yeah.
Not only help transferring them, but people who have some history in the Valley who could watch these things and tell me who these people are.
That would be
You know,
great.
I can recognize maybe 6 of our local dignitaries, but beyond that, we don't know a whole lot about what's happening in these clips.
Right.
We have maybe a one-line description that came with the film, and sometimes you can correlate it with what's in the newspaper. We could use someone to do that.
Right.
But frequently they're mysterious. I hope you show the footage of the coconut meat clip.
Oh,
No.
didn't get the coconut meat clip.
The one
No.
clip that keeps me up at night, actually it's 2 clips from 1964 and 1965. All we have is what it says on the can. It says free coconut meat.
You know what? We'll have to get a clip of that and put it on our Facebook page, and that way we can say, who is this and
That's
what
right,
are they doing?
I want to know why.
Who are the coconut
And the clips
people?
just show people cutting coconuts in half, and digging the meat out, and presumably giving it away. But why? Why are they doing this?
Why are they doing this?
And why'd they do it year after year?
Exactly. Well, I put together a clip, and it's actually more the events that go on in the Rogue Valley, and this is really super special. So if we can pull up those vintage clips, that'd be great. Oh, I just love that.
Yeah, those were all from 1964 and 1965.
Right, right.
And I find it interesting that with all that documentation that you have of certain activities, that there's still mysteries, modern mysteries about some of those activities.
Oh gosh, yes.
You know, so.
But still, we're lucky to know anything. We're lucky to have this film. We're lucky to know anything about it. As I implied earlier, you go to a lot of counties and they don't know anything and have no way to look anything up. And it's we're very lucky that that our history has been documented as well as it has.
And let me just ask you one thing. So like that type of footage or photographs, that type of stuff is what you can actually get at the historical library.
Absolutely.
See, I think that's amazing. Yeah.
People can come in and watch that footage for hours on end or just look at the index and say, that sounds vaguely familiar. Maybe I remember this, or this might be someone I know. And I wish people would do that and come identify these people for us.
Yeah.
Because when the current generation of old-timers die out, those things will be permanent. This film will be permanent mysteries.
Right.
There will be no one alive who can identify those people anymore.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah.
Now, among the big activities, things that affiliate through the Historical Society is Hanley Farm, which was donated by Mary Hanley, as I understand.
In 1982.
Yeah, and so, and that farm has a long history here in the Rogue Valley.
Oh yeah.
So, what can you tell us about some of the activities that go through that farm?
Well, there are a lot of activities. I actually have a list. I compiled a list.
Oh, great! Yay!
And of course, once again, the more volunteers we have, the more activities we can put on. We have a long list of ideas, but just don't have the manpower to do them. We have a lot of volunteers. We're pushing 100 volunteers, but still, we have all this stuff that needs doing, all this stuff that could be done, all this history to let people enjoy, and we just can't do it on a volunteer basis. But we do at Hanley Farm, it's the venue for the Children's Heritage Fair. We have Living History Days, which typically we bring the Civil War reenactors for, and they do a Civil War encampment. The Heritage Plant Sale every spring. You know, volunteers will grow bedding plants, you know, of heirloom varieties, and sell. We have it in Mary Hanley's greenhouse, and they'll sell those in the spring. We had a very successful music festival last summer, and we're going to do that as an annual event. The Scarecrow Festival and the Haunted Field are Halloween-themed events we do every year in the beginning of October, so they're done for this year. And what's coming up now is the wreath making and the holiday open house. Yeah, the wreath making is a great opportunity for a new volunteer to get involved, because on November 4th, we're going to be stripping the grapevines from Mary Hanley's vines, you know, stripping the leaves off and making the wreath bases. And this is something anyone can do. Great opportunity to just wander by and say, "Hi, I'm new, put me to work." November, so
Workers, we
November,
need workers.
November
we need
4th.
volunteers.
So November 4th, 10:30 to noon, that's what I'll be doing.
Okay, sounds fun.
Yeah. So I believe that we have a short clip on the Hanley Farm that that we can see right now. Well, very cool. It for the history that Hanley Farm has here in the valley, it certainly in itself is one of our local gems. So
it's a treasure, and I only wish we could get more people to come out and enjoy it. Yeah.
And on the website, by the way, there is you can pop up Hanley Farms, and I believe that you can get all the information for all the events that are going on there.
SOHS.org.
SOHS.org. Okay.
So now we have some local related artifacts that Ben has brought in for us to talk about.
It's time for show and tell.
It's time for show and tell, my favorite.
Yeah. So what have you brought here to talk about?
Well, I thought I'd bring an artifact from the 1850s and one from the 1950s. And these are significant artifacts. They're not just any old things. This odd box here with the brass thing sticking out of it is the camera, the daguerreotype camera that Peter Britt brought over the Oregon Trail in 1852.
From Britt Festival.
Well,
not everybody knows that.
Well, he'd been dead for quite a while before the Britt Festival was started.
But they didn't name it after him, right?
The Britt Festival is held on his property, his former property, yes. And this was, I think this may have been the first camera brought into the Oregon Territory.
Wow.
Yeah.
But this is his first camera, and it's a treasure. It's over 160 years old. And you've heard stories about people having to sit still for minutes.
Yeah.
That was the really early days of daguerreotype photography. By the time this was made, you'd only have to sit still for 15 or 20 seconds, which is still a long time when someone says, "Don't breathe, don't move." And this is where the I want to say film, but it didn't use film.
That's right.
This is where the treated metal plate would go. And this is the ground glass that he would use to check the focus.
Wow.
And you can see the rectangle
yeah.
and the ellipse that's drawn there on pencil that Peter Britt drew there.
Oh, nice.
So he'd know if he had the camera pointed in the right direction and had the person silhouetted, positioned correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all made out of wood and brass.
Yeah. It's a
With,
far cry from my digital SLR.
Yeah.
That I,
Yes,
yeah,
with a little ivory knob.
yeah.
And did you bring a picture?
And I brought, a lot of people
sample?
don't know what a daguerreotype is.
Uh-huh.
So I brought a daguerreotype, and it's, they would polish a copper plate to a mirror finish, then coat it with plate it with silver, then treat the silver with corrosive substances to light sensitize it. Then you'd put it you'd close it off with a cover, put it in a special case so it would fit in the camera.
I love that.
Then expose it for that 15 or 20 seconds, then develop it, which was a very dangerous process involving mercury fumes. And
Oh, yeah.
So it's
That's not good.
it wasn't good. But you get this kind of odd image, which
You
it's a
do.
mirror. So if you look at it
Yeah.
in the wrong way, you really can't see it.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of photographic case that Civil War soldiers would carry with them into battle. Although by that time, the daguerreotype was pretty old-fashioned. By the 1858, Peter Britt was taking pictures on paper, he was actually the first person in this Oregon Territory to do that.
So what else do we have here? What is this?
This is our artifact from the 1950s.
Okay.
This was Pinto Colvig's makeup case. This is he made this. This is, you couldn't buy this. If you can get up close, you can see how it's all crudely stitched together with just carpet folded over what looks like a GI airline bag, an overnight bag. And if you don't know who Pinto Colvig
Right, I was
was,
just going to say, who is Pinto Colvig?
well, you can't be brief about Pinto's career. He had a long and varied career in show business. He's
Okay.
mostly remembered for what he did before World War II with Walt Disney. He was a voice man and a gag man. He was the voice of the Practical Pig in Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. He co-wrote that song, and until he died in 1967, he was the voice of Goofy and the bark of Pluto the pup.
Wow.
But after World War II, he was contracted by Capitol Records to write and record the Bozo records. So every Bozo ever since has been imitating Pinto Colvig. And he was the first TV Bozo. And as Bozo, he would do public appearances, open shopping centers, do grand openings and things like that nationwide. And this is the case that he took with him.
Wow.
And you can see on the end,
I used to be a clown.
it says,
So this is Bozo
on the
the
end it
clown.
says PC, Jayville,
Oh, wow.
and on the others.
And he was a local.
He was a local boy. He was born in Jacksonville in 1892.
Oh, my gosh. PC. Wow.
It's not commonly known. He spent his high school years in Medford, went to Medford High School, because there was no Jacksonville High School.
Wait, and he was the voice of Goofy and the voice of Pluto?
Yeah, and he was also the voice of a couple of the dwarves in Snow White. He based Goofy and Grumpy on local characters.
I love that. Goofy
So-
and
so-
Grumpy come from the Rogue Valley.
Yeah, so we got a
And we
strong
have-
Rogue Valley connection to Disney. So
And we
that's
have
pretty
an
cool.
enormous Pinto Colvig collection because he always felt very closely connected to the Rogue Valley. His children and nieces and nephews donated a lot of his artifacts to us. We have his scrapbooks from his silent movie days. And he had a long career in cartooning even before Disney. In the teens, before World War I, he was making advertising cartoons in San Francisco in the same years that Disney is making advertising cartoons in Kansas City.
Wow.
Inventing on his own, both of these guys, the art of animation.
So what else you've got here? You've got, yeah, because we've
Well, I
got
also
a few
brought
minutes more.
these are 3D artifacts that really should be in a museum, but we can't afford to have a museum anymore.
Not yet.
No.
Maybe one day.
We're thinking about it hard. We're working on it, but we've recently gone through a reorganization. We've had to lay off all our employees. So it's now a strictly volunteer organization, and it's been quite a shock to our system.
Well,
But all of the artifacts that used to be in our museums are still safe. They're in secure storage. Nothing. We haven't.
They're looking good.
We
yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
trashed things. We haven't sold vast quantities of artifacts.
And so, what do you have here?
But
Might have to pick
just to
this one up
represent
for the camera. Yeah.
just to represent the archives. This is the quality of reference we have in the archives. This is a Sanborn map,
Wow.
a Sanborn fire insurance map for the city of Ashland.
Oh, how neat.
And
Let's
Sanborn
see.
fire insurance maps were created so that the home office, wherever their home office was, they could look at this map and decide if they wanted to insure your property, because they could look at their map from 1,000 miles away and see what fire traps were next to you, and see the construction of your building. So every Sanborn map has two dates. It has the date it was published and the date it was updated to. This one was published in 1928.
Oh, but we can't hear.
But the reason these pages are so crinkly is because they would
help you
they
hold
would
it up?
send
Oh, there we go.
updates that you would paste over to update it. So this was the 1928 map when the plaza used to be just this right here. I think in 1948 they cut these buildings here and straightened out Main Street and made the plaza much bigger. So if you were at the library instead of on TV, you could see through this pastry, you could see the outline of the original buildings.
This is so pre-computer.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I'm just
definitely
thinking,
pre-computer.
and I love this because
Yes.
you know it's a book and it's been preserved, and we can just
And
really get the
and
history.
we have dozens of these, but we also have a complete set of Sanborn maps digitally,
Okay. Oh, you do.
which people can actually buy a copy of on
Wow.
disc. And I wanted to show you the railroad district,
Okay.
but it's hard to find upside down. This doesn't lend itself to paging through out of idle curiosity.
I do believe we have a couple of screen grabs of the
Yes,
pages.
yes, we do.
Can we
that
pull up the
that we
screen
pull
grab?
those up.
There they are.
Yeah, that's the railroad district. And on the lower left, you can see the roundhouse. You can see the little round turntable, which rotated the engine so it could go into the proper bay of the roundhouse.
Right.
And in the middle is the depot.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like, I hate to say this, we're almost out
Out
of
of time,
time,
yeah.
so we've got to wrap up. I just want to say that if we can pull up the website for Southern Oregon Historical Society, you can volunteer, you can make donations, you can become a member, and we're just so excited to have had the Historical Society with us today.
Yeah, and we want to thank our guest, Ben Truwe, for coming in and talking about the Historical Society and all that it offers.
Yeah, and this is all the time we have. It seems like we could just go on and on. I mean, this is history,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. And while we're here, we want to thank our crew for all the help that they've done in putting our show together.
For sure.
So we can't do it without them.
Yep.
So I'm your host, David Nienow.
And I'm your host, Cassandra Wass.
And we'll see you next time.